Okay, so today we will talk more about basic animations. The more advanced animation is when we start adding bones into meshes. So for this one, these are the bones and joints that I inserted into the mesh, and that will govern the degree of freedom. You can see how the head is animating along the neck. That's something we will learn soon, because I want you to have a good grasp of origins and basic animations before we move on to that, so it doesn't get too confusing. Today we're gonna animate these 4 legs being installed into the table, and with that I will pull out the wooden table that we use for UV unwrapping, and we'll talk something about separate, a function. So I will turn on my screencast keys, and then you can see how the 4 legs and the table is part of one mesh, one object. And how we separate it is we go into edit mode, we turn on X-ray, which is Alt Z, and then we just select the 4 faces of the leg and the base of the leg, like that. And then we will press P for separate, and by selection. Press tab to go out of edit mode, back into object mode. Now you can see these are actually 2 separate objects. One is the table and one is the leg. You can see the origin, which is the orange dot here. This was copied from the original table. We don't really want that, because when we start to animate rotation, it will rotate about this origin, which is not what we want. There's a short way of doing this, which is going to object, set origin, and origin to geometry. This will put the orange dot in the middle of the geometry, so when we animate a rotation, it will do it properly. This is good enough if you're doing a rotation like what we're trying to do now, but what if this was a door and the hinge was up here and you want to animate the rotation about that? That's a bit more complicated, but it's not hard. We will select this leg, Shift H to hide everything except the selection. Then we go into edit mode. We can select the top here by pushing 2 to do the edge mode, and then Alt left click. That will select that top ring. First we're going to close this face, so when we animate we don't see through the leg, because this leg is supposed to be a solid object. So after you select the ring, the top edges, press F, that will close off the face. So now you just got this face. Next, we want to move this origin to the top. And we do that by selecting the top face, Shift S. This is a new shortcut, and that moves the cursor. Okay, we want to move the cursor to selected. You can see the 3D cursor jump from the origin to what I have selected. And then now with the 3D cursor there, we're going to press tab to go back out. And in object mode, with your object selected, go to object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor now. So that will move the origin, the orange dot, to the 3D cursor. So now when we press Alt H to unhide everything, and we select the leg again, we can rotate about the y-axis, and it will rotate about the top, the origin that we just moved to. Imagine if this was a door, and that's the hinge. Okay. Now we'll proceed with animating the installation of the leg. So we just learned about 2 shortcuts. One is to move the origin to the geometry, and the other is to move the 3D cursor to where we want it to, and then moving the origin to the 3D cursor. That will give you more control in the animation as you progress further into animations. Okay, so most of the time doing animation, it's better to start from the end and then go backwards, since we know at the end, the last frame, the leg is supposed to be here, installed and done. So we're going to start here at the 90 frame, select the leg, and then I'm going to press I to insert a keyframe, and I'm going to say location, rotation. So that's the last, that's the end frame. So let me move this to 90. And then maybe 10 frames out, I'm gonna have the leg slightly lower, maybe over here, and then I'm gonna rotate it about the Z axis, so R and then Z, and I'm gonna just say maybe 720 degrees, and then I'm gonna press I, location, rotation. So what do we have here? Well, maybe that's a bit fast. So I'm gonna move this maybe to the 70th frame. That's still a bit fast. So maybe 60. That's okay. That's good enough. You guys can adjust it to the way you like it. And now I'm going to go back to frame 1. And I'll just move this down. Maybe over here. Then again, location, rotation. What happens is now it's going to go to that point, and then it's going to screw the leg into the table. I'm going to move the rotation slightly back. See, like that. That's good. So I'm going to leave the other 3 legs for you to do as exercise. So remember, first step, go in, get all the faces you want, separate by pressing P. Once you've separated it, go back into object mode. Now you have the leg. You can shift H to hide everything. And then up at the top, press 2 for edges, Alt, left click to select all the edges, press F to close it. So now you've got a top face, and then Shift S, move the cursor over here, go back out to object mode, and in object, set origin to 3D cursor. So now it's bound to that origin, Alt H to unhide everything. And maybe you want a slight offset this time, so this leg installs a bit quicker than the other. So you can start maybe at the 80, location, rotation, and then this time I'm going to move it back somewhere 30. Down here, rotate on the Z, 720 degrees, I, location, rotation, go back to frame 1 and just drag this down. And that's the start frame. So now if I go like that, it's slightly offsetted, but I could have done a better job. Okay, so that is another basic animation, but now it's with individual origins, as well as learning how to separate meshes into different objects and moving origins using moving the origin to geometry, or moving the 3D cursor to where you want, and then moving the origin to 3D cursor. Thank you.